This podcast may contain disturbing content for some listeners. It's intended for mature audiences. Listener discretion is advised. This is True Crime XS.
This is Mary Lynn.
It's been decades.
My sister will never be back.
But for Mary Lynn Rankle, the Aponto's family, justice has been served.
He got what he deserved, 60 years maximum.
At age 15, James Papel brutally attacked Mary Lynn in an old Colorado City alley. Decades later, Mary Lynn's family was able to address him in court after hearing from witnesses and autopsy reports.
It was like the last thing I could do for my sister. So it was very important to me.
Here was a young, innocent mother, wife, who is just walking through a neighborhood she felt very safe in, grew up in, knew everybody, who is just horrifically murdered.
Papel also spoke out in court. He described his upbringing and said this whole situation has been difficult and wants to try and help others with mental illness in prison, saying, "All I have to say is I'm sorry. I know that's not enough. I can't take this thing back."
I didn't buy it. I don't think he apologized. He was trying to make himself out to be a victim.
Before delivering the maximum sentence, the judge told the court she was in high school when she heard about this case, calling it one of the most horrific, violent, brutal, sadistic cases I've ever seen.
The day has come, and I'm ready to go on, knowing that it's been resolved and he's been sentenced.
Now, due to statute of limitations, they could not charge for rape, but prosecutors did ask the court to make a factual finding. However, the judge said it doesn't matter since Papel will never be eligible for parole.
I didn't actually expect to be recording this episode, so there may be a little bit of background noise here. This was a case I thought we would record in a couple of weeks because the anniversary was coming up on the case. The anniversary is coming up on the case. There's a huge reward in this case that was actually put up by the husband. And that was really interesting to me. This is in Colorado. So this is about 2.5 hours north of Castilla County.
I just want to clarify real quick. I know the husband put up some of the reward, but I believe some of it was also...
Yeah, so, okay, the husband put up $100,000, and then a family friend doubled it.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to clarify that.
So the case that we're talking about is the disappearance of the disappearance of a Colorado mother named Suzanne Morphew. It just had an update that feels so suspicious. There's a lot of media out here where people are talking about this case and about different aspects of this case.
I haven't delved very far into what's happening, just web sleuths, or not the website necessarily, but people talking about it on the internet from, their investigative points of view. So I don't know a lot about what's being said aside from the case itself being in mainstream media. And I have a tendency to, and it's stereotypical and it's probably wrong, but this was a 49-year-old mother of two. And I'm not sure how old her kids are, but I would assume a little older. They're not little, I imagine. And I immediately think when a mother goes missing like that she's succumbed to foul play. And, obviously the first person to look at is the husband. So unfortunately, I do have that sort of stereotypical mindset. And it wasn't a surprise to me that they, arrested the husband earlier this week. This is breaking news on it.
Right. So it isn't a huge surprise to me. A couple of things about his arrest. First of all, he's charged with first-degree murder, so they're going to hold him in Chaffee County Detention Center or an appropriate facility. I don't think he's going to get a bond on this one.
First-degree murder, I doubt it.
He's got first-degree murder charges, and then he's got a tampering with evidence charge, which is always interesting to me because I assume it's either related to the body or some kind of murder weapon. But he's got a charge of attempting to bribe a public official.
That's what I was going to say. Like, what is that about?
Well, that could be the stake in the
most telling
heart.
piece of all. Right. And so when you are going to, especially you've got a brand new DA and a lot different than I'm used to in Colorado, because you hear these district attorneys that are responsible for like all these different counties, and like they have expansive territory, so to speak. And so it's odd, but as far as prosecutors go, especially brand new prosecutors, I'm sure that they want to go big or go home. And so we can see them squeezing charges out of, circumstances that on their own may not line up, but they just want to make sure they hit them with everything they possibly can. Now, this is just my opinion, and I don't know that it's specifically relevant to this case, but it's when I see these first-degree murder, tampering with evidence, and attempt to bribe a public official or a public officer, I wonder. First-degree murder in and of itself is enough of a charge. Okay, it's a big charge.
It's the charge.
Right. And so that's proving, premeditation and homicide. So why charge these little charges?
Because the little charges is all that they have. And this,
well, that's what concerns me, because it seems like, well, first of all, no body. So, that's that.
Taylor Swift says, no body, no crime.
She does indeed. And it's really hard. Now, that is a thing, but it's also not as much of a thing as it used to be, because they can, this will more than likely get pleaded out.
If he's guilty, or if he's just trying to get it over with, yes, there will be a plea deal of some kind. This is a really common type of crime, though. Like, so, when we look at these particular types of crime, these are not new. Scott Peterson, Chris Watts. Lots of times we see this husband who's paraded out in front of the media to ask for the safe return of his wife, who ultimately is then accused of having something to do with her disappearance.
You know what? I immediately thought when you said that, I thought, well, this isn't the same thing because she's not pregnant. But it really is the same. It is the same husband and wife, but like, I don't think she's pregnant at 49. So I know that like on the face, it's the same thing, but I think deeper, it's probably not. So I don't know. That just crossed my mind when you said that, because I had to think like, oh yeah, it is the same.
Yeah. Well, I'm dropping in like a lot. Like this week has a lot of show notes stuff, because I think people need to look at some different things that are going on. I have video of where the bike was recovered. I have video of the home that these people lived in and a lot of that remote area around it. And people need to look at that, because this is exactly what I was talking about with these weird ass Colorado cases. Now, while it's probably being pushed through the court system and they say that the investigation is just starting, it's not. The investigation is now just focused on the husband. That is all. Like, it probably has been for quite some time in order for them to lay these charges. This district attorney, Linda Stanley, she has Fremont County, Park County, Chaffee County, and Custer County, Colorado. She has 4 Colorado counties.
Right. And so it's by judicial district. Right. That's how
that's a huge area.
So if you had to speculate, like a sort of an educated speculation, what would you say the biggest factor of the timing of the charges is? Oh,
they're doing this because they're maximizing Mother's Day and the first anniversary of this disappearance. That's what they're doing.
Do you have any idea how long it typically takes a husband to be charged in this kind
I've looked at a lot of different cases. Like it can be, that's the variables on it. It could be as small as like a short a period of time as, they may charge them right away. And
I guess it's how guilty the husband feels, like if he confesses. Well,
a confession would cause, a lot of movement.
Quickly, right?
And then I've seen some of these cases come through where they don't charge the husband for years. and then they genuinely charge first degree murder. And I see a lot of cases that are ramrodded through the court where I look at it, and it's not that I don't think he's guilty. It's that I don't think they necessarily know what they're doing when it comes to these cases. And when I say they, I mean largely
Everybody.
prosecutors' offices. I genuinely think
Right.
some sheriffs and some police investigators, depending on where you're at and how big a department you're in, it may be the chief of police is referring for charges. It may be a chief of detectives referring for charges. I genuinely believe that sometimes they shovel these cases over to the prosecutor's office because they're tired of dealing with it, or they've gone as far as they believe they can, or they have something that's actionable that they think the prosecutors can turn into a pressure cooker to get a defendant to confess. This feels like they're going to try and, like, he lawyered up. They say it in the press conference. He lawyered up, but they're going to try and pressure him. The way that prosecutors can do that, they can do it by overcharging. They can do it by, in a case like this, not in the current environment or location, but they could say, here's the death penalty. There's a lot of things they can do to pressure a defendant into pleading guilty or to confessing.
And what do you think the new prosecutor taking office, what role do you think that plays?
To me, anytime that happens and they, quote, hit the ground running and you've got a new prosecutor, they have something to prove. And, other people will disagree. Other prosecutors that I know and talk to will disagree with that fact. But it's a big deal.
Well, and I think that every single case that comes to fruition and becomes a case to bring justice to a victim against a perpetrator it's a balance of law enforcement work, prosecution work, and an ability to bring it all together. So, there's always the opportunity for a prosecutor to say, we don't have enough. Okay. There's also always the opportunity for a prosecutor to say, let's do this. And so that's always fascinating to me because, a case is a case is a case. And pretty much everything, especially when you have these domestic type situations where your a husband ultimately becomes the suspect perpetrator in his wife's disappearance and murder, it is what it is from the very beginning. It's not like they're going to uncover some smoking gun evidence. I believe they said that they'd executed 135 search warrants, and they've done a lot of work in this case. And so when they also stand up and say, we've got a lot of more work to do, well, how much more could there possibly be? I don't see how, if it was a stranger abduction and murder, that would be a completely different story. But when you're talking about, husband and wife or anybody who lives together, I just don't see how it doesn't make sense for them to say, yeah, we're holding this guy on a first degree murder and what was it? Was it tampering with evidence or obstruction?
It's tampering with evidence, and then
attempting to bribe
a public officer.
When they say that, it seems like to make those charges, they would have everything they needed. And if they think that there's still a lot of work ahead, that concerns me greatly. They're going to be disappointed because I feel like all of that information, they've gotten to all that exists.
I'm totally curious what this attempting to influence a public official is.
I really want to know.
That's
what
the
is
thing
too.
that might be. Maybe that's why they did it. Maybe it's not the anniversary of her.
Well, so in my and I haven't looked it up or anything, but that would make me. So it was attempting to influence. It wasn't trying to bribe them.
I don't know if in the Colorado statutes there's a difference, but yeah, you're correct. The wording was attempting to influence a public officer.
Okay, and so that would be I can imagine it just being him trying to, convince somebody that she ran off, or it could be a lot of things. And that's a weird charge, and you have to keep an eye out when there's these weird reaching charges, along with first degree murder, because I don't see how they're going to do all this work and come up with a case if they don't have it already. There's a lot that's happened, and it is what it is at this point, but that's not what I was hearing, what I've seen on the press updates and the press conference. And, I get that they can't comment, which is, I find it like hilariously ironic when they call a press conference and then say, like, we can't answer any of your questions.
Yeah, that bothered me. And,
why do that?
Well, okay, I understand in a way why they would do that. One, the CBI, the lady actually comes out and talks ahead of the press conference. She's from the CBI. She's one of the agents working this. You can hear it in the press conference, which I'm going to drop into this episode, along with a couple other pieces of media that I found bizarre. You can hear it that this press conference feels like a statement from the investigative and prosecution side of this, meaning the police and the lawyers in the DA's office, where they're saying, leave us alone now.
Right, but to me, that's more of like a press release type thing, not a press conference.
They did a press release as well, and then they there's almost.
I feel like if you're gonna say we can't answer any questions, then you shouldn't call a press conference.
Well, there's almost hostility in this press conference. It's like right on the edge of it.
I think that might be part of. I think, well, you can hear, if you said you were going to insert it, you can hear the media is certainly hostile. At the end, they actually kind of criticize
why has it been a year?
And yeah, they're saying like you've done one press conference in a year and that's all the questions you're going to take. But they weren't really answering the questions anyway. And I mean, they were answering them, but like it wasn't anything useful. So to me, to have a press release, a press statement, that's one thing. But if all you can say is like, we can't comment on that, I don't feel like, the media is not ever going to be satisfied with that. So it just seems like an endless game, a dance.
Also, because of the circumstances and because of the situation surrounding this entire case, this is one of those cases, and I think you'll agree with me, where people are going to get book deals. They're going to be interviewed for documentaries. There's going to be a series about it on Netflix. Like, this is like a Scott Peterson style case. So it really doesn't matter what they do right now from a prosecutorial perspective. It is all about how it looks in the public perspective. Like, and I don't understand why they're not managing that more. And I think people will disagree with me from that perspective because it's supposed to be about justice in the system. I think that we will find that attempting to influence charge is what tips off this arrest. I think that attempting to influence that's going to be the point where they squeeze this case because, like you said, the web sleuths have lit up on this case. You can go out and you can read on the literal site Web Sleuths. You can go through all of the different, forums that talk about true crime, all the way up to Reddit.
What's the
vibe? Is that the husband did it. Like, that's the thing that people are saying. People have been convinced because essentially there has been no outside investigation into this other than who did this. Oh, we think the husband. Like, even from the perspective of like apparently the prosecutors and the police, who did this? The husband. Everything that you read that's sort of offhanded and like, this is one of those cases that grows so big that it sort of goes gossipy. And when it goes gossipy, it's really just a collection of information about Barry Morphew, meaning he did this and he did that. He looked weird doing this and they sold their house and they did this. I have some suspicions here that there's more to this story than what we currently know. I'm not saying that like he did it, he didn't do it. Because he very well could have, and we all know that when we sit down to like start staring at true crime and staring at a screen. I told you this about this case. Something feels really weird about the whole went for a bike ride thing, and I don't think it's from the side of the husband because typically when that happens and it's the husband or an obvious suspect, I don't feel weird about it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and actually, so. I'm just assuming that, and like I said earlier, I immediately put enough information together when she went missing that, I assumed it was the husband, and I haven't been like actively following the case. So we go back and in my mind, I think about, I guess it hasn't definitively been established as to whether or not she actually went for a bike ride.
There was a bike found on a trail, and there are questions about like, what does that mean? And like, is it a real thing, or is it all a setup?
Staged thing. Right. And so, it goes back to where we talked briefly when we were doing our domestic violence awareness about Nancy Cooper, how she went for a run, and how being, a runner out, and, that immediately makes everybody a suspect. It takes that away from her husband. And so I have to, stick to the impression that gave me when I say, you know what, if she was really bike riding, it's actually way less likely that it was the husband. It's more likely that she encountered someone else so what I'm saying is, her husband didn't follow her and take her off her bike on the trail. Like,
exactly.
Either he staged it, or, it was someone else. And so
they found her bike. And they found a nearby personal item that they never described. My thinking is that it's her phone. I don't think that has been revealed to the public yet. They're really tight-lipped about this case. They're not really talking about it at all.
Well, and see, that's where it's hard to really, make any sort of, informed conclusion as far as that goes. And I understand why they keep it close by, but they keep it under wraps. But if it's her phone, which, what kind of personal item would you have? Maybe an iPod if you are, a million years old, but, most people use their phone for everything. And how long did it take him to find her bike?
It was a couple of days. It was within a month. I don't know. Let's see.
Did they use her phone to find it?
That's what I'm wondering.
Because that should have been done
wouldn't
immediately.
Wouldn't the husband turn that off? Wouldn't the husband turn off Find My iPhone or whatever was going on there?
If her Find My iPhone wasn't on, then and that a perpetrator could have turned that off.
I'm just saying.
But they could have also taken it. But if they're going to turn it off, why not take it with them?
I'm putting a really well-established timeline in here where they're trying to So the news out there has been all over and all on top of this case for a while. So I'm putting the timeline into the show notes and multiple different articles. I'm dropping in multiple different pieces of audio from some crazy ass sources.
Does body language and the evidence prove that Suzanne Morphew's husband was involved in her disappearance? Find out next. Welcome back to the Channel Shakers. Derek Van Shake here. Suzanne Morphew is the 49-year-old Maysville, Colorado woman who went missing after going for a bike ride on Mother's Day, Sunday, May 10th, 2020.
The search for a Chaffee County woman continues. Suzanne Morphew, missing since Mother's Day when she did not come home from a bike ride.
The Maysville mom and wife has gotten national attention while deputies continue to look for any clues in a case that still has more questions than answers.
She's married to Barry Morphew and have 2 daughters together.
We have her nephew, Trevor Noel.
She is the sweetest, most loving person. She's my aunt and the most wonderful, loving, beautiful person inside and out, and we need her back to us now.
Police seem to have found Suzanne's bicycle, which appears to be less than a mile from Suzanne's home in very rural Colorado.
I'm willing to confirm that the bike was found on Sunday evening, the night that she disappeared.
As many of you know, I live in South Denver, Colorado. I mountain climb, hike, do a lot of exploring of the Colorado wilderness. So I'm actually familiar with the area she disappeared. That area is basically as rural as you can get, but there's a state highway that goes through it. This area is not at all like a bad part of a major city.
We don't have too many things like this happen around here.
So when I first heard about this missing persons case on the local Denver news, I figured she went mountain bike riding on the many trails out there and got lost in the vast Colorado wilderness. However, that doesn't seem to be the case. Locals have said that the police found her bike at Fooses Creek, which is less than a mile from her home. Police have said that the evidence indicates that it's unlikely that she was attacked by an animal. It doesn't seem like she got lost because they found her bike, and she's very familiar with those trails around her home. So it's pretty much deduced down to either an abduction or foul play. As you heard, her nephew, Trevor Noel, not her husband, was talking with the media.
Please go to Facebook and visit the page, Find Suzanne Morphew, facebook.com/Find Suzanne Morphew.
In fact, when I first heard this story on the local Denver news, I figured she wasn't married because for a whole week, we didn't hear from her husband once. Not once. Not in a TV interview, not in a newspaper interview, not a social media interview, no statement, nothing. After a whole week of Suzanne missing and this story getting national TV coverage, we finally hear from Suzanne's husband, Barry, in a 25-second, apparently rehearsed video statement. So we're going to continue to piece together the evidence along with breaking down his body language to reveal if her husband is involved in her disappearance. Now, let's get started.
A neighbor told the sheriff Suzanne never came home from a bicycle ride. Now, searches have located her bicycle and an unspecified personal item. Her husband, Barry, issued a plea today online.
Here's his quick 25-second statement in full. See what you think of his body language and other clues, and then we'll rewind it and break it down.
Oh, Suzanne, if anyone is out there that can hear this, that has you, please, we'll do whatever it takes to bring you back. We love you, we miss you, your girls need you. No questions asked. However much they want, I will do whatever it takes to get you back. Honey, I love you, and I want you back so bad.
What do you think? Do you think Barry was involved? Let's break it down. It's amazing how so little can reveal so much. First, after an entire week of Suzanne missing, husband Barry finally decides to make his very first public statement. How does a supposedly loving husband go an entire week without making any statement at all? We would expect a loving husband to be out there first, practically begging for the public's help. Second, Barry only puts out this 25-second rehearsed video clip. He doesn't do a full question and answer media interview to raise awareness to the entire country that his wife is missing and they're looking for her and they want her back. There are so many benefits of doing as much media as possible in these missing person situations because you'll have the entire country looking for her and looking for evidence to help lead to finding her. Have you ever thought someone you love was missing, maybe for just a few minutes or maybe a few hours? How did that feel? Personally, I have, and it's one of the scariest feelings on earth. It's that terrible sinking feeling of not knowing what your loved one could possibly be going through at this very moment. Anyone who wants to find their loved one will literally do anything and everything possible, even if it's a slim possibility that it will lead to their loved one's return. They will still do it. But Barry over here has been MIA for the past week. And as you surely know, that first week of someone's disappearance is the most critical to get them back safely. Is it possible he's avoiding media interviews because he saw how guilty another Colorado guy, Chris Watts, looked when he did his media interviews?
I don't know where my kids are. I have no inclination of where she is. Like, Shanann, Bella, and Celeste, if you're out there, please, just come home. Wherever they're at, like, I have no inclination of where they're at right now. When I got home yesterday, it was like a ghost town. If she's vanished, like, I want her back so bad. I want those kids back so bad. I want them safe. I just want them home so bad. I like these shirts a lot. I just want them back. I just want them to come back. This has got to stop. Like, somebody has to come forward. Please bring them back.
Oh, Suzanne, if anyone is out there.
Now let's get into his body language. First, lack of reasonable emotion. Remember, this is the first week after his wife disappeared. And at this point, he surely would know that something is terribly wrong.
Most wonderful, loving, beautiful person inside and out, and we need her back to us now.
But no sadness or scared emotions.
That can hear this, that has you. Please, will do whatever it takes to bring you back.
Look at his eyes. His eyebrows are stagnantly down and together the whole time, which seems to be imitating concern because that expression is very inauthentically fixed on his face. And his body language is incongruent, profusely shaking his head no when he said it.
We'll do whatever it takes to bring you back.
Which indicates he doesn't seem to want her back. We would expect a lot of head nodding when he said that. Although generally in a situation like this, we would expect some head shaking, indicating disbelief that this is happening. But in what should be a very certain part of his statement, he profusely and incongruently shakes his head no with what seems to be tense fake emotion plastered on his face.
We love you, we miss you, your girls need you. No questions asked, however much they want.
Here's the thing too. Barry's claiming that his wife was randomly abducted off her mountain bike on Mother's Day Sunday. They found her bike at Foose's Creek. So according to Barry here, there's a random abductor hanging out on a middle of nowhere, backwoods, Colorado mountain biking area, just waiting for the right person to come along all alone on Mother's Day, when people typically spend time with family and don't go out alone.
I will do whatever it takes to get you back. Honey, I love you. I want you back so bad.
Now even more incongruent head shaking with no sad or scared emotions in a time when we would expect head nodding in what should be one of the most certain statements of his entire life.
I will do whatever it takes to get you back. Honey, I love you. I want you back so bad.
Honey, I love you. I want you back so bad. I dare you to give this a try on your significant other today. I love you. See how well that goes for you. So does all this prove that Barry is involved in Suzanne's disappearance? Well, whether he's involved or not, the way he's acting indicates he doesn't want her back. But also the story of her randomly being abducted off of her bike in the middle of nowhere, Colorado on Mother's Day seems pretty bogus. You're surely wondering where Barry claims he was on Mother's Day Sunday. Barry claims that he was in Denver, which is about 2.5 hours away from their home, on a business trip. On Mother's Day Sunday, a supposedly loving husband was on a business trip away from his wife/mother of his kids and his kids during a safer at home quarantine order in Colorado, and at that very odd exact time where it doesn't make sense for Barry not to be home with his wife and kids, his wife vanishes. Keep in mind too, even if he can prove that he was seemingly bogusly in Denver during the time of his wife's disappearance, doesn't mean he could not have been involved in her disappearance. Also remember, this is an open investigation and very little evidence has been officially released to the public.
We've also solicited and received the help of the Colorado Bureau of Investigation and the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and they are here now and they're actively working with us on this investigation.
To the CBI and FBI, I know some of you watch my videos, so if you want a fresh perspective on something or a second look, let me know. You of course have my cell phone number and my personal email. Just so everyone knows, I typically decline all private investigation requests, such as, is my husband cheating on me? But obviously this is quite a different situation.
We've run foot searches using air support, canine support, swift water support, and we've also utilized countless hours of drone searches. We've used well over 200 personnel and over 2,000 man-hours have gone into this search, but unfortunately we haven't found Suzanne yet, and as I stated before, that is our top priority. We're certainly hopeful she is. Obviously, as time goes by, it gives us concern, but we're searching as though she's alive, and we do believe she could still be alive.
And I want to point out that this definitely mirrors like the Brad Cooper, Nancy Cooper case from North Carolina that we covered. And a lot of the true crime tropes are familiar. One of the interesting things here is that a lot of body language people get involved on YouTube, and you can check out the channel for the gentleman I just mentioned here. It's not that body language is complete bullshit. It's that it's really, in itself, it's sort of a trope. And a lot of the people who claim to be experts in things like lie detecting and body languages, if you listen carefully, they contradict themselves. It's very similar to like conspiracy theories. They latch onto something that is true, but when they apply it to every single case, they end up contradicting themselves. And overall, body language is not the science that people think it is. It's really a pseudoscience that has about the same effectiveness as like hypnosis or deep relaxation. Realistically, body language is only as valid as the people interpreting it. And in this case, I happen to disagree with a lot of what is being said, but I find it interesting that someone else made different observations. You don't know what people are going through. It's not that it means Barry Morphew is innocent. It's that this is not a reliable way to look at it. I mean, look, the show is called True Crime Excess. I am definitely pointing out, like, there's a thing in politics today. Think about who could actually run for office, personality type wise, financially, and like tolerance level. Think about like who could run for office in the digital age of media that we live in, and listen to videos like this where if you had that ability was real, that type of body language, I guess this is how you market yourself. The truth is everybody can do a little bit of it. Just not all of us are built to sort of scream it at other people in a video that we put on YouTube. But, you know, it's interesting because this guy's not the only one that jumped on the Barry Morphew did it train, because there's other people involved. And anytime a show makes it to Dr. Phil, I have to believe that it's either something we've never heard of before or the husband really did do it. I don't know where Suzanne Morphew's case falls into it here, but in my opinion right now, I don't necessarily think there's a case to be built against Barry Morphew yet. I think that even though there's an arrest, the case is still being built, and that is not how our court system is designed. So there's that. But also, the minute that all of this hits, and that video, the body language video, is from shortly after her disappearance. And it's just sort of proof that whether it's a presidential candidate or a suspect in a murder or a disappearance or whatever, you can't win. You can't talk, you can't not talk, you can't half talk. There's nothing that you can do that's going to satisfy everyone. And it's not that I think I know better than them. It's that I am just aware of how much of an excess all of this is and how much bullshit is really being bantered about as like fact and truth. And just so I'm on the record saying that guy can do whatever he wants. That's totally fine. That's why I use it here. That's why I'm being critical of it here. The bottom line is it's not science, and it's never going to be recognized as science because it's just him that can do that. It's his observations that see those things. If you try and apply them the same way, you won't have the same interpretation. And you, even as you change subjects, like the people that you are interpreting, different people will have, using the same techniques, different results on each case-by-case basis. And the bottom line is, if it's not something that can be hypothesized and then tracked with research to see what the rates would be of error and how applicable like different emotional situations would be, it's not something that we can use. It's not that it doesn't work. Everybody's seen a magic act. It's like a magic act. Once you see how the tricks are done, it doesn't look the same and it doesn't work the same after that.
What specifically has pointed you into thinking that it's actually her husband?
Well, when it started off, Phil, we found the bicycle at the bottom of a ravine, and my brother-in-law is a really good hunter and an expert tracker. And he thought that maybe Suzanne had ridden over the side of that, gotten injured, disorientated, and fallen into the river, and or a bobcat had attacked her. Well, I stood on that bank of that road, and I looked down, and I thought to myself, no. That didn't happen. There's no blood trail. And if I had ridden a bike over there, it would have been pretzelized and my knuckles would have been hamburgerized. So no blood, no things of that nature. So I told him, I said, Barry, look, she didn't get taken by a puma. There's no mountain lion involved here. He acted like he didn't want to hear that. But he finally came to the realization that everybody else realized that didn't happen. So the next thing, he's hauled in and questioned and interrogated by the CBI. Won't take a lie detector or voice analysis. And that bothered me deeply. Thirdly, the EVI information, which is called electronic vehicle information, on his truck did not line up with his timeline of events that he laid out for the police. Fourthly, since then, some of his employees have come forward speaking of the smell of chlorine at a hotel room that he hastily got for them to set up on a wall project where they were building a wall.
When was the last time that you had a face-to-face conversation with him?
May 11th.
Is he at all aware of what you have found, other than the conversation we're having now, which of course he's not listening to, but does he have any idea that progress may have been made in finding something?
I don't believe he does, no.
Assuming this is Barry, what would you expect next?
Well, I think that an arrest would be made. Obviously, he'd be prosecuted for the crime.
And of course, he has absolutely denied this. He said he's not doing it. I want to be very clear about that. We can't say that he did it. I'm not saying that he did it because he's not here to deny it. And if he was, he certainly would. You may or may not know that I'm trained in forensic psychology, and I've learned to go back and find out that there's a link in every chain. And this took place on Mother's Day weekend, and that he left on Sunday to go to Denver to work on a job. Would you expect that to be part of that relationship, or him to take off and her to go riding a bicycle on Mother's Day?
No, it doesn't sound anywhere near normal to me. And like I said, the EVI information on his truck didn't line up, Phil. He said he saw her at 5 a.m., and he did not.
And how do you know that?
Testimony from an employee that he was rambling down the road, texting people at 4 in the morning, trying to get them to go to Broomfield.
So
can't be at home at 5.
And talking to somebody on the road at 4.
Right.
So that the timeline doesn't add up at all.
No, not at all.
You've got two nieces, Mallory, who's now 22, and Macy, who's 16. Would she go off riding by herself, or would she be in contact with them? Would she go off the radar for 7 days and have no social media presence, no presence electronically for that period of time with her daughters?
No, absolutely not. They were on a camping trip with the church, and
right.
On their way home, wanted to wish their mother a happy Mother's Day. Got no answer. They called their father, said, "Dad, we can't get a hold of Mom." He tried. He says he tried, couldn't get a hold of her. And he asked the neighbor to go over and see if she was home. So the neighbor goes over, opens the garage. The cars are all home. She returns to her phone, calls Barry. Cars are home. Barry says, "What about her bicycle?" The lady says, "I'll have to go back over." So she runs back over, looks, no bicycle. The odd thing to me was at midnight on Saturday night, I want you to realize she was seen in town with Barry getting a sandwich at 4 p.m. At midnight, somebody friended all of the guys my age on her Facebook. At midnight.
At midnight?
Yeah. My theory is she was killed after 4. Her Facebook was manipulated at midnight. She was hidden between midnight and 4 a.m. on Mother's Day morning.
Suzanne's brother, Andrew Mormon, says he decided to take matters into his own hands, and he organized a search of hundreds of volunteers to comb the area near where Suzanne's bicycle was found, an area surrounding the home she shared with her husband Barry and their daughters. On Sunday, Andrew says he discovered what he believes may be case-breaking evidence, and the FBI and the Colorado Bureau of Investigations have now taken over the scene. You're looking at exclusive photos and video from DailyMail.com.
You're asking why the chasing a lead, gotta throw it in the bucket.
Well, today, in a daytime exclusive, he joined us from Colorado immediately following his shocking discovery. Andy, it's Dr. Phil. Awfully glad to meet you, but very sorry for the circumstances.
Yeah, it's been pretty rough. Thank you. It's nice to meet you as well.
Well, we've been following this very, very closely, and my goal this evening is to keep a very bright light on this situation so nobody turns away from it, nobody forgets it, not law enforcement, not anybody in the area. So just know anything you want to talk about, anything that we can do to keep the focus on this, that's exactly what we want to do. And I understand that you have been out in the terrain, in the mountains, in the area, conducting a search on your own, correct?
That is correct, yes.
And I understand that there was some breaking news today that a discovery may have been made. Can you tell us what has happened?
Well, we were fortunate enough to have search dogs in from Missouri and another set from New Mexico yesterday. And we made a little discovery. The dogs hit in a particular area, which we turned over to the FBI now. There's 2 areas of interest, and I've got a third one on the way tomorrow.
So they actually hit on something. So tell me about these dogs.
2 of them were small Australian shepherds, I believe. They were black and white. And when they go in and they see something suspect or smell something suspect, they'll taste the grass and they'll circle the item many times, and then they'll finally sit down on it. And the German Shepherds behave almost the same way, only they get extremely excited. Their faces will wrinkle up. Their ears will come forward to catch scent. They'll also kind of scratch on the site. They'll dig.
I hate to ask this, but are these scent and hunting dogs? Are these cadaver dogs? What type of training do these dogs have?
Cadaver dogs.
So these would be dogs that would hit on a scent if they were looking for a dead body, not a live person.
Correct. Guy told me he had one of his German Shepherds hit on a War II vet. So they can smell back a long time.
Do you believe that they have found your sister?
I think there's a good possibility.
And can you describe what the area is? Is this a mine shaft? Is it a grave site? Is it disturbed ground? Is it an air shaft? What kind of area did they hit on?
Well, one of them's a riverfront. Another one is a tree planting. And the third one is an addition being put in, and the entrance area with blocks.
Are these areas that would lend themselves to hiding body or body parts?
Yes, absolutely.
I want to say one thing really quickly. You sent me an article the other day that makes me think of this case. Do you know what article you sent me without me saying it? It was from this area. You sent me this thing about Colorado Parks and Wildlife euthanizing a bear. And it was the 3rd bear attack in a very short period of time. That's from here.
Holy cannoli.
So I just that's one of the reasons I wanted to go ahead and cover this case now.
Oh my gosh. Can you imagine if that's what happened?
They blew off animal attacks last year. I don't know. They just said it was highly unlikely this time of year, but I want to point out that the end of April into May, so the project I just worked on also had an animal attack. And then this project, this article that we read was about 3 different bear attacks. And one of those bear attacks, they found human remains inside the bear.
Yeah,
and that was a 39-year-old woman who was out same way. This is the same thing that's going on here.
That's crazy. Because let's think about this for a second. So you're saying that because she went missing on May the 10th, so we're just shy of a year, right? You're saying that they discounted the possibility of her being it being an animal attack because of this time.
I don't know exactly why. I'm trying to hunt down why they discounted it. I remember hearing them say it was unlikely it was an animal attack, but I had read about a cat attack and I had read about a bear attack last year, and I was interested in whether that was a possibility.
Well, one thing I will say, I have looked into, I'm fascinated by bear attacks for some reason.
I'm fascinated by cougars and bobcats.
Yeah, it's that's not as big of a deal. But one thing is, it seems like there's always something that can be found.
What do you mean, of the body?
With a bear. Yeah. But here's another thing. Bears often bury their bodies. Yeah, they bury it and they eat off of it.
Yeah.
And I don't know, coming out of hibernation, I would say is the perfect time to be.
Well, it's also the time when they have a lot of young around.
And see, if you get between a bear and its young, you have made a grave mistake, even if you're on a bike on a trail by
I would totally believe that this case was an animal attack. And up until about 3 months ago, I didn't totally understand
cougar and bobcat attacks. And now that I've seen some different attacks, like from the perspective of security cameras, where, you know, those cats can be quite large and drag you off, or they can be really tiny and still really fuck you up.
Well, yeah, because of their, sharp claws and teeth.
And once you're
That can
down, they
be
drag you off.
Right. Man, so horrifying. But so it seems to me like, and I don't know how Colorado is, but what do you have any idea of what like the possibility of like surveillance cameras and stuff like that?
Well,
was
they
in this
went,
case?
okay, this is a really remote area. No matter what anybody says, like, I don't think people understand how strange this area is. I live in a remote location that's sort of a bedroom community. This is way more than that. Like, it's remote from the perspective that, like, you have to fly overhead to, like, get a sense of what the housing looks like. They were looking for it. They're looking for surveillance cameras. Early in this case, early, like within 48 hours of this case becoming a headline, which was probably 3 days after she went missing, they started asking people to preserve their cameras.
The footage.
Yeah, like doorbell camera footage, footage from.
So is there any information about what was
Nope.
found or what?
Nope.
Okay, so who knows if anything relevant was found? Because to me, I don't know. I can't get it in my head if it would have been seen. But you know, I know in the Watts family murder, they used the neighbor's footage to establish a couple of things. Do you remember that?
Wait, say that again?
With Chris Watts, the family, when he killed his wife and 2 little girls. That's his name, right?
Yeah. But I'm saying, what do you mean?
Well, they used the neighbor's footage.
Oh, yeah. Now I see what you're saying. They used the footage from the different house, and then they used his GPS, and like they were filming him the whole time, though.
Well, just from random, they were filming him, but it was like body cam from the cop, and like it wasn't like a crew was there filming him, but it was just like the neighbor like immediately offers assistance when they're looking for Shanann and the girls, and the neighbor even says like that guy was acting weird, because you can tell that Chris Watts was put off by the fact that he offered immediately the surveillance footage. And of course, we know now that, you know, why he was put off by that. But it shows him, you know, leaving, and it didn't catch him in a lie or anything, but he backs his truck up in a weird way or something. And it just, you know, it shows his reaction to the situation where he's standing there and his neighbor is graciously offering to show him the footage. You know, his reaction to that is more telling than the footage itself. But because I guess he wasn't exactly sure what was going to be seen, maybe.
Yeah.
And so I was just curious because, you know, there's footage everywhere. And so anything that would indicate she actually was on her bike, that would, to me, are any witnesses who actually saw her on her bike. Now, I know it is remote, so, you know, it's a possibility that that's just not a thing. And, you know, that's unfortunate for the husband. But it seems to me like the bear angle or the animal angle, that's really interesting to me. And depending on how her bike was found, because now I'm trying to think, bears will chase people on bikes.
Now, if it's thrown away, like she's running away, is that what you mean?
Well, here's what I imagine happening, because bears will chase people on bikes. Now, if they're riding along and there's a bear running after you, I believe like the very first thing you'll do if you are caught by the bear, or if something happens and you're no longer on your bike, you're going to use your bike as a weapon.
Right. Push it or throw it or whatever.
So, you're going to try and deter the bear. Now, you know, just for anybody listening, like it is highly unlikely you would be able to outrun a bear. So there's that. But to me, it would be telling. Now, I guess she could have dropped her bike and ran, but it just seems like the very first thing you would do in that type of encounter would be to slam the bear with your bike. So that, and to me, there'd be enough evidence left from that to be able to tell something.
Well, there should be, but that's not always the case with animal attacks. Like sometimes it's obvious they've been there, they leave behind remains, but even when they attack dogs, it's not always the case that you see very obviously what it is.
It might not be like right there. They could drag somebody like a substantial.
Oh, I'm aware of that. That's what I was talking about with the cats. I know a bear is the same way. Like they should find something nearby, but like depending on the terrain of where the bike was, doesn't mean that's actually where they got her. If she kept going, then the bear grabbed her later, dragged her off. You might never find her because it's really difficult to like track that part down. And I know this sounds far-fetched to say, oh, it's a cat, oh, it's a bear, whatever.
I actually don't think it sounds that far-fetched. It actually would make more sense. It makes more sense than a stranger abduction. I'll say that.
The stranger abduction is going to be hard for me to believe in this case, and I'm pretty much not going to be able to understand a stranger abduction or a serial killer because of the location. Basically, this would have to be somebody who either just randomly happened upon her, which is, as you and I know, the rarest of rare, or it would have to be someone who was stalking and hunting her, and this was the moment they chose to grab. That's the second most rare thing.
That would come up, though.
Somebody would have seen something related to that,
right.
But basically what we have at this point is we have Suzanne Morphew's husband, Barry, has been arrested. And not only has Barry been arrested for her murder, he's charged with tampering with evidence, which hopefully is backed up in some way that like we could see that. And he's also charged with an attempt to influence a public official, which is interesting in a different way, because that could be the catalyst for this arrest that is happening right at the anniversary of her disappearance on May 10th last year. I'm hoping to release this on the anniversary day.
I think that that could be a catalyst. I'm fascinated to see what that is. And, you know, like was said in the press conference, all the arrest warrant affidavits are sealed. So we won't know for a while, what led to that particular charge. It's an interesting charge. And I think the biggest influence over time, I think maybe this DA felt like there was enough to proceed perhaps over the previous DA's desire to do so. Because like I said, the case is what it is. If it's a domestic situation, there's not going to be a whole lot of new information that comes up from nowhere because it is what it is. But so I hesitate because I don't want to give somebody who has committed a murder an out. Okay. But I'm very intrigued by this bear attack idea.
Right.
Mostly because that article I sent you was like, it just happened. Right?
It was timed for the last week of, it was happening throughout April, and the final discovery and last attack was like right on the precipice of April, May. It's very close to this time-wise.
Right. And so what happened was they euthanized 3 bears and they found human remains in 2 of them. And the reason that, so the thought is if a bear attacks a human and they ingest human parts, it becomes like substantially more likely that they will attack a human again. And so it's a safety precaution to euthanize the bear because, you know, my thought initially is, well, they already killed the person, you know.
Right, exactly.
If it's not going to save somebody's life, you know, what's the point of euthanizing them? But the point is that it might in the future save someone's life. Happening in April, right on the cuff of April going into May. And, you know, they did find they found 2 of the 3 bears had human remains in them. And now I can't remember if they actually knew who had been killed. Did they?
Yeah, they had a body to go with the remains. Okay. That's why they were doing that
makes me say, well, if that could happen, then it could have happened in this case too. I'll have to look back over the article I sent you because I didn't send you that because of this. I just am fascinated with bear cases. At first, I thought it was you were talking about the narcissist.
Oh no! This was about the no. I was not talking about that person. I'm not giving them any airtime whatsoever.
No, okay. I was very confused.
But the bear part, the bear thing was really interesting to me, and it was a 10-year-old bear and its cubs had been found with human remains after the body was found. And I have to look back to see the circumstances of that as well. But like I said, I am fascinated by big cat attacks and by big cat attacks and bear attacks. So this becomes a little bit like Michael Peterson and the owl. Nobody believes that, but
that's probably the thing I get the most interesting messages on different types of social media about is that owl. But I didn't say it to be different. It wasn't my idea.
Really?
It's just what, having known that area, been to that area, it's what I believed happened. And that's why the animal things are so interesting to me. Thanks for joining us. You can reach us at 252-365-5593 or at truecrimexcess.com or truecrimexcess@gmail.com if you want to send us a note. This episode was brought to you by LabrottieCreations.com. That's LabrottieCreations.com. Check out the merchandise and specifically their fun Pop Pet art custom pieces made from photos of your very own pets. Use the promo code CRIMEXS, that's CRIMEXS, for 20% off a fun, brightly colored, happy piece of art of your own pet at their site, LabrottieCreations.com. Music in this episode was licensed for True Crime XS. The theme song was Indestructible by Noah Smith. You can find us on your favorite podcast platform or at TeePublic, Instagram, or Twitter. You can also join us on Patreon to fund future body exploration trips. But the best thing you can do for us is leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform and share us with your friends. And we'll see you next time.
This is True Crime XS.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Thanks for making the drive to Salida today. We really appreciate that. I know our speakers are going to have some papers, so it may have to reconfigure this a little bit. But welcome to Salida for today's announcement. I'm Susan Medina. I'm with the Colorado Bureau of Investigation. Sheriff Speasy asked that I come down today and help facilitate today's update. So I'm going to go through the speakers list and then provide an overview of what's going to happen. And then in a few minutes, our speakers will come out and provide that update. So our speakers today will be Chaffee County Sheriff John Speasy. That spelling is John, S, P as in Paul, E, Z, Z, E. Also speaking will be 11th Judicial District Attorney Linda Stanley. Linda's name is spelled Lindastanley. So what's going to happen today is first we're going to silence our cell phones. Thank you. I know. The sheriff will come out. He will make remarks about today's development in the case. The DA will then provide comments, and then both of them will use this opportunity to field questions. We've got a lot of people here, and I know there are many questions. I'd ask that you not shout those questions out. If you could just be respectful, raise your hands, and we'll get called on as many people as we can. Then once the presser is done, the sheriff will send out a news release recapping everything that was updated today. Okay? So I'm going to go in, round everybody up, and then we'll be right back out. Thank you.
Can everybody hear me okay? Up? Okay, I'll yell. All right, I'm Chaffey County Sheriff John Speasy. We're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to read you a prepared statement, and then we'll introduce our district attorney and take questions after. Good afternoon. I wanted to thank you for traveling to Chaffey County on such short notice for today's briefing. Before we begin, I just wanted to speak briefly about Suzanne. I have to admit I did not know Suzanne personally before the beginning of the investigation, but now I feel I've gotten to know Suzanne quite well. I have learned that Suzanne loved her two daughters, Mallory and Macy, deeply, and there was nothing she wouldn't do for them. I've also learned that Suzanne had a passion for life and lived it to its fullest. I've also learned that Suzanne was very easy to like and was cherished by her closest friends. I believe people like Suzanne are a rare find, and those who knew her were indeed very lucky. Today marks a major milestone in this investigation of Suzanne Morphew's disappearance. We're announcing that at 09:15 hours this morning, the Chaffey County Sheriff's Office arrested Suzanne Morphew's husband, Barry Morphew. He was taken into custody near his home in Poncha Springs. He was alone at the time of his arrest, and he was arrested without incident. Today marks the culmination of thousands of hours in this comprehensive investigative effort to locate the mother of two who went missing May 10th of 2020. More than 70 investigators from the Chaffey County Sheriff's Office, the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and dozens of other local law enforcement agencies have provided their expertise on this case. We've executed more than 135 search warrants across Colorado. We've interviewed more than 400 individuals in multiple states. Our team has also investigated more than 1,400 tips generated from within and outside of law enforcement. In early April, the extensive work completed by our investigative team was presented to the 11th Judicial District Attorney's Office. In that multiple-hour presentation, we outlined all of the information and evidence we have taken in over the past 12 months. Following that meeting, the District Attorney's Office reviewed our case and information and solidified their decision to move forward on this case. Today is not the day for celebration, nor does it mark the end of this investigation. Rather, it's the next step in this very difficult yet very important journey as we seek justice for Suzanne and her family. I know how deeply this case has impacted our community over the past 12 months. Through multiple conversations I've had with our citizens across the county, one message is clear from everyone, and that's that they wanted answers and they wanted justice for Suzanne. Although I'm not able to offer specific details, I want to assure the community that every action our investigators took in the past year led to today's arrest. This arrest would not be possible without the assistance of our supporting law enforcement agencies, which include the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and of course the 11th Judicial District Attorney, Linda Stanley, and members of her office. Before District Attorney Linda Stanley speaks, I want to extend my deep appreciation to our community for their support they've shown us for over the past year. While this has been a trying time for our citizens, I've seen our community rally around one another and our investigative team. I'd now like to introduce District Attorney Linda Stanley.
My name is Linda Stanley. I'm the District Attorney for the 11th Judicial District, which includes Fremont County, Custer, and Chaffey counties total. I wanted to say that thanks for being here for everybody, and there's a couple of things I'd like to address about this case. First, the investigation is still ongoing. Suzanne, her body has not been found, and we're still looking into that. The investigation is ongoing. Second, Barry Morphew is presumed innocent until proven guilty. That's important to remember. Third, the arrest affidavit is sealed at this time. I cannot and will not discuss it. Fourth, all media inquiries from this date forward should go through my office. However, I'm sure you all are aware and know that we cannot talk about any open or active investigation, and that is per the rules of professional conduct that we will abide by. Lastly, I wanted to say that today is a good day. It's a good day for all of the men and women in law enforcement that have tirelessly worked toward getting here. They worked day in and day out, sacrificing more than any of you will ever know. They even continued working and continued their sacrifices as they were being raked over the coals and second-guessed as to their skills and abilities. I'm standing here in front of you on this good day because they never quit. Sheriff Speasy and his deputies at the Chaffee County Sheriff's Office, Alex Walker, investigator for the 11th Judicial District, those two individuals and Sheriff Speasy's office in particular are consummate professionals and, quite frankly, some of the best I've ever worked with in my entire professional career. They followed every lead, every tip, and every unanswered question, no matter what direction it led them in. They never compromised the integrity of the investigation. On several occasions over the last few months after I was sworn in on January 12th of this year, I met with these professionals and went through hours and hours of their meticulous investigation. Their investigation was presented to our office just a few weeks ago. For me, today is a good day, but for my office, this is where the work begins. There's more work to be done. However, this is an important and incredibly crucial step. And today is a good day for Suzanne. As far as I'm concerned, today is all about Suzanne. And it's about her family. And it's about all the individuals that knew her and loved her and cared about her. That's what this day is about. And it's a good day. Thank you.
All right, we'll go ahead and take some questions now.
Can you tell us?
Right, turn the light.
Thank you. Can I please, the district attorney, if you don't mind, you're not releasing the affidavit. You don't have a body. How can you prove to the members of the public that you have a strong case?
For those that didn't hear the question, he said, we're not releasing the affidavit and we don't have a body, so how can I convince the public that we have a strong case? That's my job. I'm the one that considers how strong my case is before I bring charges, and I wouldn't bring charges unless I was confident.
Oh, go ahead.
Suzanne has been missing for nearly a year now. What made you take this step today as opposed to any time in the past year?
Who's that directed to?
Either one.
Would you repeat the question, please? Kinda?
Yeah. If I could have you stand in front of the microphone just to make sure
Yeah.
that we pick it up. Suzanne has been missing for nearly a year. What made you take this step today as opposed to any time in the past year?
It's been a culmination of our investigation over the past year. Honestly, it kind of oversimplifies. Today is just any other day. It's been our investigation over the past year that got us where we are today, and based on other information we gathered, we acted on it. I mean, today became the day, but it's been a culmination of everything we've gained over the past year. And I know for everybody here, you say, well, that's hard to understand that because we haven't said so much about the investigation. That's what's so important about this investigation that got us here today, is the amount of everything that's gone into this and what's brought us here, and the ability to remain silent and do the very best we can to put the best case forward. All of that led us to where we are today.
This can also be for the sheriff and I. You made this arrest today, and you've been searching for Suzanne Morphew for a year. Is there any indication today that she is not alive anymore as your search continues?
And repeat the question if you could.
The question is if we'd been searching for her and we hadn't found her, and if there's any indication that she wasn't alive today. Is that correct? Well, we believe that she's not alive. We've filed first-degree murder charges, or we're in the process of filing first-degree murder charges. So our belief is Suzanne is not alive at this time.
Sheriff Speasy, talk about how when you pressed charges today, when in your investigation did you know that she was no longer alive, and when did you change to, it was no longer a missing persons case that you were dealing with, it was now a homicide?
You know, that's actually a really good question. I'm sorry. It's a good question in that it's not, the light bulb moment doesn't happen overnight. It's when you begin an investigation, you start collecting information, you gain more information, and as you go along, you continually assess what you're doing, and as time goes by, you start eliminating certain things and start bringing in other things, and as you progress, you go from one point to another, and you make realizations, and so your investigation is always, it never ends till it's over, if that makes sense, and you're constantly learning things, and so you go from what you believe here to what we present now, and so it's a process, and it's been a long process, been a very tedious process.
Was there a date or a time?
Black trench coat?
Yeah, grandmother, I feel the voice. I know that Mr. Stanley said the warrant is a little sealed. Could you let us know what's been charged with? Is that first-degree murder, anything else?
Jan, you're Jan, right? Yeah. That was in the early press release we put out. Did it not have the charges?
I don't think it came out in the original.
Okay.
Chance, could you read all the charges?
I don't have them with me. Do you have them? Where's Alex? Yeah.
The question was asking what the charges were. It was first-degree homicide. It was tampering with evidence and attempting to influence a public servant.
Go ahead, Rachel.
Sure. Is Mr. Morphew being held here at the facility now?
The question is if Mr. Morphew is in our detention facility. Barry Morphew is in the Chaffey County Detention Facility.
And then what are the next steps? When will he make a first appearance, etc.? Or do we not know yet?
The question was what is the next step and when is his first appearance? Tomorrow at 10:30 in the morning will be his advisement where any arguments on his bond will be heard.
7 minutes.
Can you give an update for the sheriff? Can you give an update on the search for Suzanne Morphew? We've been covering that. Has that changed at any locations that you're looking at any new evidence?
You know, honestly, it changes every day. If we receive information, as I stated before, we've investigated 1,400 tips. We're always reacting to new information. There's always things we're looking at. We never rule out anything, so it's ongoing.
Is there anything new that you can share with us in terms of where you're looking?
There's nothing I can share at this time because it's still an open and ongoing investigation, so we're not able to share any of that information.
We'll go right back here.
Sheriff, do you expect to make any other arrests in connection with this case?
Repeat the question, please.
Do we expect to make any more arrests in this case? No, we don't expect that at this time, no.
We'll go right here.
Is there an alleged cause of death?
An alleged cause of death.
The question is there an alleged cause of death? So at this time, without the body, we wouldn't be able to say that publicly. We do have information that led us to this point today and how we think a certain scenario had occurred. But as we investigate further, that may change. So at this time, I can't comment.
All right, we're going to take 2 more questions. Let's get to, go ahead.
This is for either the sheriff or the district's attorney. Has Barry Morphew have you been able to interview him since he was arrested, and has he been cooperating with the investigation? And have you asked him where the body is?
The question was if the suspect, Mr. Morphew, had answered any of our questions or told us where Suzanne Morphew's body is. And after Mr. Morphew was arrested this morning, he was taken into custody, and when asked questions, he said he wanted a lawyer, so all questioning ended.
Last question. Go ahead.
Has Mr. Morphew retained counsel at this point?
Yes, he has retained counsel.
Okay. I think we're going to go ahead and...
We haven't heard from him in a year. Can we have a couple more questions? He's done one press conference this whole time.
And I get that.
It's been a year.
Yeah, and we've got a news release that's coming out, and there's going to be more. So thank you so much. News release will be coming out in just a few minutes. We appreciate your patience and your time for traveling here today. Thank you so much.
Did you already put a mugshot out too?
That'll come out with that.
Okay.
Thank you, Linda.
Please.